Hi, everyone. My name is Annie Rogers, and on behalf of the ADDitude team, I am pleased to welcome you to today's ADHD Experts presentation titled Workplace Strategies for Professionals with ADHD. Leading today's presentation is Dr. Cheryl Chase. Dr. Chase is a licensed clinical psychologist. She specializes in diagnosing and assessing conditions that affect children, adolescents, and young adults, including ADHD, learning disorders, and emotional concerns. She is in private practice in Cleveland, Ohio, and is certified to serve clients across 40 states. For more information about Dr. Chase's work, visit chasingyourpotential.com. When ADHD comes to work, it brings with it incredible strengths. Creativity, problem solving, curiosity, and resilience, just to name a few. But ADHD can also bring problems with focus, time management, organization, and task completion. Left unchecked, these challenges can hurt performance and impact career opportunities. Today's webinar will equip professionals with ADHD and their employers with actionable insights and strategies to increase job productivity, improve career satisfaction, strengthen self-image, and encourage inclusivity. On that note, we would like to begin today's webinar by asking a poll question to our live audience. What makes a job great for you as a neurodivergent professional? Please choose up to 3 options from the list. I know it's hard. Think about the ideal job you want, the one you're in, and the one you've had before. Please select your answers, and you can comment in the text box under the video player at any time to tell us more. For answers to common webinar questions about slides, transcripts, and certificates of attendance, just click on the FAQ tab of your webinar screen. And make sure to visit ADDitudeMag.com/subscribe to sign up for ADDitude Magazine. If you do it today, you will receive our brand new fall issue of all about midlife reinvention with ADHD. Click the magazine tab on your screen to learn more. And finally, today's sponsor of the webinar is Inflow. Does keeping track of your projects and deadlines feel impossible? Does your work often get derailed by little distractions? We've been there. Inflow knows that staying focused and productive at work can feel hopeless, but it's here to help. Developed by leading ADHD clinicians, Inflow is a self-help program that uses CBT principles to teach effective strategies that help you stay on task and actually get stuff done. Click the link on your screen to get your ADHD score today and kick off your Inflow journey. ADDitude thanks our sponsors for supporting these webinars. Sponsorship has no influence on speaker selection or webinar content. Okay, without any further ado, I am so pleased to welcome Dr. Cheryl Chase. Dr. Chase, thank you so much for joining us today and for leading this webinar discussion.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that lovely introduction. Yeah, I think one of the things I loved most about the introduction that we just heard is the balance between the strengths and the challenges that ADHD brings when it comes to work with us. So yeah, there are strengths, and believe me, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Folks with ADHD are my favorite people. They have so many strengths, and they bring so much to the table, and they're energetic, and they're creative, and they're fun, and they're funny, and they're divergent thinkers. But man, some of those strengths can also lead to some of the challenges. Being a divergent thinker also means that there's a lot bombarding the brain that they have to sort through all the time. Being creative also means that sometimes they don't get done what they have to get done immediately because they're creating off on a tangent in a different direction. And so we're going to talk today about the whole person that shows up at work with their ADHD and some of the challenges that ADHD brings with it when it comes with you to work, and maybe some things that we can do to help mitigate those challenges and more explore and examine and explode the strengths. All right, so ADHD, we have a huge audience today who signed up for this program, and y'all are going to have a very broad range of your knowledge base about this. One of the group of folks that we've seen signing up for this webinar are HR and employer population who may or may not really fully understand what ADHD is. I'm just going to do a quick overview of what the symptoms are, but I really encourage you to dig around on the ADDitude website because there are some fantastic introductory programs about what ADHD is and what it isn't. All right, so according to the DSM-5, which is our current edition diagnosing sort of Bible on mental health conditions, ADHD has two clusters of symptoms. The one cluster are the inattentive symptoms, and the other cluster are the hyperactive and impulsive symptoms. So ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So we've got the attention element and the hyperactivity element. The inattentive symptoms involve failing to give close attention to details and therefore making careless mistakes in your work. Difficulty sustaining attention. Doesn't listen when spoken to directly. Doesn't follow through on instructions and fails to finish what you start. And difficulty organizing tasks, activities, and materials. Avoiding things that require sustained mental effort. In fact, a lot of the questions that came in pre-workshop today were about this getting started, initiating tasks, particularly if they're things that are of low desire. Losing things necessary to get the job done. Easily distracted. Distraction can come from up here in your own mind, or it can come from the environment around you. Many people that I work with ADHD also have racing thoughts and anxious thoughts. So the distractions, they could be in a perfectly pristine, quiet environment, and they're distracted because they bring the distractions with them in their own thoughts. And then forgetful. So didn't realize the appointment was today, forgot that they were supposed to, call their doctor and get a refill on their medication, things like that. All right, so those are the 9 inattentive symptoms. There are also 9 symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity. Fidgety, like excessively fidgety. Struggle to remain seated or in place. Now, in adults or older teenagers, this may manifest as a feeling of real restlessness and internal drive. Feel restless. Loud. So when I interview parents about their kids, I'll say, if you were to go to a birthday party or you were to go to McDonald's play place, do you hear your kid over every other kid? Feel on the go or driven by a motor. I've heard it explained as I feel like somebody over-cranked the key in my back. It's a little bit older reference to toys, or somebody put too many quarters in the toy because it just keeps going and going and going. Energizer Bunny. Talk too much. Blurt out answers before the question's been completely asked. Difficulty waiting your turn. Interrupt or intrude on others or take over what someone else is doing. The way this may manifest at work is someone with ADHD may go in a colleague's office and just grab their tape dispenser because they need tape, and they don't wait to ask the person or really search their own office or find some other alternative way. They just may intrude, go take someone else's tape. They may take over a meeting or blurt into a conversation someone's having and kind of take it over from there. And so you can see these symptoms can be a problem in a workplace, particularly if that workplace is highly social, particularly if that workplace is semi-structured and there's a lot of activity going around. But I actually just put together an entire multi-part workshop for a company that hired me. They're a tech company, and they hired me to put together an at-home training program for their employees because everyone works from home. And so their employees were saying, how do we improve our executive functioning? How do we manage our symptoms of ADHD? Because we're such a creative group and we're such a divergent thinking group that we do struggle with symptoms of ADHD. How can we manage this while also working from home? So it's not just in the workplace when it's the traditional pre-COVID workplace that I'm thinking of. It's also working from home. It also involves working maybe in a large institution like a hospital or a management setting where you've got a lot of people under you, but everybody's in different locations. So as you can see, these symptoms can really get in the way of whatever your occupational intentions are. Okay, so really quickly, if you're not familiar with the executive functions, I really encourage you to get yourself familiar with the executive functions. I've got free videos on my website at chasingyourpotential.com, but also I know ADDitude has a lot. There's a lot out there if you Google it. The reason it's relevant here is because the experts who wrote all these books that are written behind me, many of them agree that ADHD is really about executive functioning. And that really a better name could be dysexecutive syndrome. So Barkley, whose model I love, put forth a model in the 90s that posits that problems with the development of these executive functions are actually what lead to the ADHD symptoms. And as we understand the executive functions, now we can begin to understand ways that the brain is kind of going awry and put some interventions in that work with the executive functions. Executive functions are self-directed actions that we need to engage in that are cognitive up here in our brain in order to choose and subsequently work towards our future goals. In his book in 2022, he lists 7 executive functions. If you've ever heard me speak on this before, I usually say Barkley has 5 executive functions, but he's modified and kind of expanded and split a few apart. And so now he landed most recently in his book in 2022 on 7 executive functions. I want you to think of the EF sort of as the air traffic controller or the conductor of the brain. So the air traffic controller doesn't fly the plane, but you sure wouldn't want to be on a plane if there wasn't an air traffic controller helping decide when to land, when to take off, the timing, the rate, the pace, the altitude, all of those things. The conductor of an orchestra isn't sitting in playing instruments for the symphony, but the conductor is critical for the symphony to happen in terms of rate and pace and timing and volume and all of those other things. So the executive functions sort of sit on top of all of the other functions and determine what happens where and when. You, I need more of you. You, I don't need you right now. Quiet down, quiet down. Yes, 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 I need more of that over there. That kind of thing. So Barkley has 7. The first one is self-awareness. He also calls it the mind's mirror. It's knowing who you are, knowing you exist, knowing your likes, your dislikes, your strengths, your challenges, knowing how you impact the world around you and how the world around you impacts you. So it's just being able to have a sort of cognitive mirror on yourself. Like for myself, I'm not great at night when it comes to really heavy cognitive stuff, but I'm really sharp with my brain, like 10 a.m. until 2 in the afternoon. Like that's my best cognitive time. So I know if I haven't gotten something done by like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, there's a very low chance it's going to get done today. And so I schedule my life around really maximizing 10 to 2 for this brain up here to have to work. Inhibition, Barkley calls it the mind's brakes. So it's the ability to stop an ongoing behavior, stop and think before acting. Inhibition. Nonverbal working memory. So that's thinking in your mind's eye. It does involve the other nonverbal senses as well. So re-feeling, re-hearing, re-sensing. When we talk to ourselves, that's verbal working memory. That's holding words in mind, the mind's voice. But if we're thinking in pictures or images, if I were to say to you, imagine the ocean, you can see it, you can feel it, you can maybe even smell it. You can hear it. And so that would be nonverbal working memory versus verbal working memory, which is holding in mind words and language. And we do that to problem solve and talking to yourself. Emotional self-control, he calls it the mind's heart, managing our emotions, positive and negative, by the way. Self-motivation, he calls it the mind's fuel tank. What does it take to keep going on something that really just kind of stinks and is boring? Or how do I clean up after I just made cookies? Because the cookies was the fun part. They're done, they're made, I'm eating them, but oh, God, now I got to clean up. Planning and problem solving, he calls it the mind's playground. It's where we play out different scenarios in our minds. When I lecture on this, when I work with patients in my office, I often call it the mind's sandbox. I like that a little bit better because to me it's more tangential and feeling and touching and holding, and you're really taking the what if stance. But it's just problem solving. And so what Barkley says in his 2022 book, what was it? Taking Charge of Adult ADHD. Oh, sorry, guys. Slides are being a little ornery for me. So in his Taking Charge of Adult ADHD 2022 book, he talks about these executive functions and gives specific recommendations based on these 7 executive functions that I just described. It's a great resource, and it's somewhere you might want to go for more information on this topic. What I've done is taken Barkley's work, as well as work that I've done in my practice, as well as a bunch of other books and webinars and things I've attended. And you'll see I kind of boil it down to what are some of the major things that we can do to get started. But how does ADHD affect you at work? Well, first of all, difficulty concentrating leads to frequent distractions, both internal and external, and difficulty getting stuff done on time. It can create impulsivity, making decisions quickly without considering all the aspects. You can blurt out, you might pop off at a coworker or a teammate. Time management. One of the things that we know about ADHD is folks with ADHD have difficulty estimating time. Barkley calls it time blindness. And so it makes it hard to estimate how long something will take to get done, how long I've been working, how much more work I have left. And so it can create difficulties with time management. Organization problems, difficulty getting organized, digital files, paperwork. It can lead to a chaotic work environment. It can also bring with it procrastination, putting things off. Getting started can be really difficult. In fact, as I said, not only in the questions that were posed here, but in some of the other social media circles that I'm in, one of the major questions always boils down to, how do I get started on a task I don't want to do? And I'll tell you, by the way, that's hard for everybody, not just with ADHD. It's particularly hard with ADHD, but it is hard for everybody. Hyperactivity can be disruptive if you're in a sedentary office setting. Interpersonal challenges, if you're impulsive and you have difficulty paying attention, it can be hard to really maintain good relationships. And then job satisfaction and job stability. Folks with ADHD may struggle with job satisfaction because they're bouncing maybe from one challenge to another, or there may be constructive feedback coming their direction with some frequency. It can make it hard to really feel like you're doing a good job. However, I would argue we can do a lot to manage that. And if you're willing to do what it takes to help folks with ADHD manage it, man, it's worth it. It's worth it because what they bring with them is so many strengths. Creativity, innovation, thinking outside the box, coming up with novel solutions to problems, connecting seemingly unrelated things so that ideas and innovative approaches can happen. You can get fresh perspectives. Hyper-focus. So one of the beauties with ADHD is, yeah, for the most part, they have a hard time paying attention and focusing, but boy, when they lock in, they can hyper-focus. They can become really engrossed in a task and can be super productive and produce really high-quality work when that hyper-focus is allowed to just run its course. Lots of musicians that I know and lots of artists that I know really need a lifestyle that is conducive to leaning into these hyper-focused moments. When the mood strikes me, and my brother was a musician, my other brother is a musician, when a song hits them or an idea hits them or an album idea hits them, I might not hear from them for a while because they're super locked in and hyper-focused on creating their content. Energy and enthusiasm, they can bring high energy levels and passion to their work, and they can really inspire others. Adaptability, believe it or not, by the time you've become an adult with ADHD, you may well have figured out how to be pretty flexible and adaptable because you've made yourself have to become pretty flexible and adaptable based on your time management and your time blindness and sort of the lack of anticipating what the problems might be. You're like, yeah, all right, I'm pretty good with the flow now. So if you've been able to make it this far and you have pretty good career success or pretty good life success, you figured out how to be adaptable. risk taking and entrepreneurship. So this impulsivity may actually manifest as a willingness to take risks, explore new opportunities. It can be a real advantage in entrepreneurial adventures or jobs that require you to take some bold action. Keen intuition and insight. So their ability to take in all sorts of information also allows them to see patterns and make connections that many of us miss. If you're someone like me who kind of has blinders on and is a super linear thinker, you can miss some of these other opportunities and tangential ideas. And folks with ADHD can bring that stuff to the table. Dynamic and engaging presence. Like I said, these are my favorite people. In social and creative roles, they can bring a dynamic and engaging presence. They often excel in roles that involve public speaking, networking, generating excitement around ideas. Depending on the kind of support that they have, they can be really great CEOs or nonprofit board heads or presidents or chair people, because they can really get people engaged around a topic. Okay, so that being said, I think I've made it clear that the folks with ADHD have so much to offer and so much to bring to the table that with the right accommodations, I think it's 100% worth whatever those first couple slides were about how ADHD creates challenges in the workplace. And I'm talking to you HR people and employers. Those of you with ADHD, you know, you got some challenges, you got some weaknesses, you got some stuff you struggle with, but man, you got a lot of strengths. So let's talk more about what we do about those challenges. Number one. So first of all, I want to make sure that you guys understand, I don't want you to hear me waving a finger and saying you should this and you should that and you should this and you should that. I don't want to be here to beat you up. And I hope that I'm giving you skills and not what we call in my field shoulding on you, because that's not my goal. I'm going to give you what I do in my clinical practice when someone comes in and says, hey, Dr. Chase, I need some help. These are the approaches that I take. These are what I find to be the most helpful things. Okay, number one, let's work on building better habits. Building better habits. So there's some research out there. There's some really new books, really good books, some old, some new, that have come out about building habits. And we're going to talk about that real quick. The habits I want you to start with are the ones that have to do with keeping your brain healthy. The ones that have to do with keeping your brain healthy. Our brains need adequate and consistent sleep, healthy nutrition, exercise, and water in order to be our best executive functioners. Avoid toxins. And by the way, every body is a little bit different. So obviously things like alcohol and nicotine, those are toxins, they're inflammatory, they're not healthy. But I just found out that I'm highly reactive to whey protein and cow's milk. So I don't do dairy now. My body sees whey protein as a toxin. Okay, so I just eliminated that, and I'm seeing if it helps me with, concentration and sleep. And I play tennis competitively, so does it help my tennis game? Manage stress. This is key. A stressed out brain doesn't have enough counter space to really engage in executive functioning because it's really engaged in managing stress. So these books that I'm talking about and some of the research that's come out over the last maybe 30 to 50 years talks about it's not willpower, guys. We are all so tired of beating ourselves up over the shoulds and the willpower. And what more and more we're finding is it's about building better habits. And so depending on which book you look at, 40 to 60% of the activities that we engage in every day are pulled out of us because we're responding to the stimuli around us in the form of a habit. So we can use that. We can build upon that. So we talk about the habit loop, cue, routine, and reward. So when I wake up in the morning, pretty much the first thing I do after I brush my teeth, use the bathroom, and change into my shorts and t-shirt, which by the way, are all habits themselves. First thing I do after that is I go make a cup of coffee because that's what I do. Why? Because that's what I do. It's just a habit I've developed. Wake up, yawn, feet on the floor, walk to the bathroom, brush my teeth, go to the bathroom, throw on a t-shirt and shorts, walk out and make my coffee. That sequence of habits has been built over time. And so what we know is that the routine that I follow is pulled out of me by morning. If I were to lay down and take a nap and wake up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going to engage in all those same things. So the cue trips or elicits the routine. And there's clearly some kind of reward that I get from that, or I wouldn't keep doing it. I brush my teeth because I like the way it feels when my mouth is clean. I use the bathroom because I like the way it feels when my bladder is not full. I make a cup of coffee because I like the taste, or I like the feeling of the caffeine, or whatever. And so these books, which I'll show you here in a second, these books talk about how to use the habit loop, setting up more cues for yourself. You want to drink more water? Guess what? You got to make more water available in your world. You want to drink less alcohol? You know what? Be around alcohol drinking cues less often. Go for a walk with your coworkers after work instead of going to happy hour. So you want to make water and healthy foods more available. You want to make toxins and junk food less available. There's also something called habit stacking, which is the idea that if you want to, say, for example, read more, you stack that habit on top of something you're already doing. So you get a cup of coffee in the morning and you sit down at the kitchen table and your habit might be to scroll on your phone. Instead, you're going to leave a book in front of the coffee pot every night. So when you get up in the morning and you make your coffee and you sit down at the kitchen table with your coffee, you then also flip through a couple pages of your book. You stack a new habit that you want to develop on top of an old one. How might that look in the workplace? Well, at 3 o'clock every afternoon, maybe you find yourself wandering into the break room to get a cup of coffee. So every time you wander into the break room to get a cup of coffee, you're also going to declutter the top of your desk. So whatever clutter developed over the last 3-4 hours, you're going to put those pieces away. Or maybe you're going to add some other habit that you particularly want to do. So as I drink my coffee, I'm going to do 3 minutes of mindfulness. I'm going to find a program or a show on YouTube, and I'm going to do a 3-minute mindful activity while I drink this coffee that I just went down and picked up at the break room. Intention setting. So some research on habit building has also shown that simply stating, I will X at Y at Z, increases the chances that you will do what it is that you say you want to do. So let's say you want to clear off your desk before you leave for home every night, and you want to make a to-do list of the top 3 priorities when you show up at work in the morning. So you say every morning, I will clear off my desk at 4:45 every single day in my office. And at 4:55, I will make my to-do list of 3 things I have to do tomorrow morning, the first 3 items on my priority list. So simply stating that intention increases the chances that you'll do it. I will do this activity at this time in this location. I will work out at Planet Fitness at 5:30 after work every day. I will drink an extra bottle of water at 10 o'clock in the morning every single day. So just simply stating the intention increases the chances you'll do it. Relatedly, we tend to engage in behaviors if we believe they're important and if they're a piece of who we are. And so one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is I changed my message on my lock screen on my phone. And it says, fall in love with the process of becoming the very best version of yourself. And that's what I mean by this next one. I am a healthy person. So instead of I'm going to drink more water every day and I'm going to avoid dairy, which has been a massive habit for me to change, I just said, I'm a healthy person. And now I just move forward making decisions that are consistent with my identity. Rather than, I'm not allowed to have dairy, poor me, what am I going to put in my coffee, right? Or I used to love cheese on my burger. Now what am I going to, I'm a healthy person. And I'm just going to make choices that are consistent with that. And so at work, it would be something like, I'm doing the very best that I can to become an organized person. So listen, I'm not expecting you to not admit your struggles, and I'm not gaslighting. Don't say to yourself, I'm an organized person, if you know you're not organized. But you're allowed to say, I am working every day at being the most organized that I can. And putting these papers away on my desk, that's what an organized person does. So you're working on shifting your identity, and it helps shift your belief. Okay. So the books, Atomic Habits, fantastic. The whole book is available for free audio on YouTube, by the way. The Power of Habit is excellent, and Tiny Habits. I think all three of those are really, really good. But Atomic Habits kind of opened the door for me. Okay, tip number 2. You have to externalize important information. Your mental counter space, where you hold all of that important information, it's just too small. We know that. We know working memory is one of the big issues with ADHD. And so I want you to put key information in writing and keep it handy. So Post-its, binders, important information. So this is my office. I do my writing in here. You can't see it, but in the corner and for those of you on podcasts, you might not be able to see, but in the corner over there, I have my workspace for my writing, and I have a massive bulletin board with all sorts of information that I use when I'm writing. And then I have my DSM there, and I have a binder with frequently referenced information, and I keep it right next to my computer. So when there's key information like passcodes or passwords or templates that you use over and over and over again, my friends in the medical field, you have those little pocket reference guides that you can laminate and put on a spiral ring binder that might have dosing or titrations or, terminologies and things like that. Make your own sets of reference tools that you can go to over and over again. Put notes in your phone, take pictures, and then learn how to search your pictures. Guys, this is the most powerful tool. This is like a massive, massive supercomputer at our fingertips at all times, our phones. And so take pictures. And I don't know if you know this, but at least I know on an iPhone, you can search where the spyglass is up top of your texts, and you can search for a word and it'll find it in your texts. Or you could search for something in your pictures and it will pop up. And so I take pictures if I park in a public parking garage. I take a picture of my car and a picture of the view around it and a picture of whatever the information is on the wall. I might be in section 3, row D. So when you're at work and someone is showing you a process or a procedure, video it and save it in your phones. How to use the copy machine. What's the code for getting into the safe where all of the medications are? Whatever these things are, these repeated processes that you use over and over again. Take a video and save it in your notes. Text yourself. So in my phone, I have a contact. The contact is called myself. And so I might be in the middle of something, hands dirty in the kitchen or driving a car or working on a report or something. And I can just say to my phone, text myself. And then it says, what do you want to text? And I'll text myself a message, remember to, pay the homeowner's insurance bill or whatever it is. And then I've just texted myself. And then I have an alarm in my phone that goes off every 2 hours. And that's my reminder to go back to all the things I texted myself. End of day checklist on the back of the office door. So one of the folks that I work with through that tech company asked me if I could work individually with her. And so we did several Zoom calls, and she showed me her home office and her home work environment. And we built in the habit of at the end of every workday, because it's tough when you work from home because you could always be working. And so she had a designated workspace, and she made a how to put my office to bed every night checklist, and stuck it in a sheet protector, and then was able to cross things off with a write-on wipe-off marker at the end of every night, and just kept it on the back of the office door. So every night she put her office to bed. Meal prep options on the fridge. That's just an example. I use that all the time, especially if, there's 4 different proteins you can take for lunch every day, 4 different fruits, 4 different starches, whatever. Your leave leave in the morning checklist on the garage entry door, so that when you leave the house every morning, you have the same stuff. But it may be, if you have an office on one side of town and you're there a couple days a week, and then you have an office on the other side of town and you're there a couple days a week, what do I need to take to my different locations? Any repeatable process can be turned into a template. And write out the steps, for example, for doing laundry. All right. I've got about 5 or 8 more minutes of content, so hang with me here. We're going to go fast, but remember that you're going to get the recording. You can always go back. All right, talk to yourself, guys. This is a massive tool. Self-talk is the engine of verbal working memory and problem solving. So talk it out. Talk it out loud. Pretend like you're explaining it to a friend, or really explain it to a friend. Teach it to a pretend class. Use photos or stuffed animals. Or in my field, we have what's called the empty chair technique. So if you're trying to sort something out, problem solve, figure something out, talk to someone, even if they're not really there. Do it as a character in a distinctive voice if you need to. Winnie the Pooh explaining to Christopher Robin something. Hold a pretend microphone. Visualize if you can. And one of the accommodations you may need to ask for in the work environment is space to talk out loud. I talk out loud to myself when I'm problem solving all the time. When I'm doing my report writing, I'm pretending like I'm explaining it to someone. And then I put that in words with my fingers. Learn how to do boring better. So here's the crappy part, guys. It doesn't feel good to do boring stuff. There's very little positive emotion attached to doing boring things. So we have to find a way to attach positive emotion to it. Make a playlist in your phone, make music. If you're doing heavy thinking, don't use lyrics, by the way. Lyrics will confuse your verbal thinking, but you can have music without lyrics. Use pleasant scents, a wax warmer, a candle, incense. Hang out rewards for yourself. I had to clean my kitchen a few months ago after the holidays, and I took myself out to dinner when I was done. So, buy yourself lunch, get a new outfit, go to a movie, get yourself pizza, do a massage, whatever you need to do. But if you've got big things out in front of you, hold yourself accountable and then reward yourself. Have an accountability buddy. So find a friend. I have a very good friend who, when I'm really struggling, she and I will set up a day in the month and we will get together and we will do whatever we're struggling with together. So if I'm really having a hard time getting something written, like I promised this organization I would write an article for them, and I just kept burning out, getting stuck. I said, hey, I need you. What day can you hold me accountable? And she's like, well, I can do, Saturday, whatever it was, June 8th or something. So we got together we either do the library or we'll do like a coffee shop or something. And we do not leave until we both started, at least got 3-4 hours into whatever project we're doing. An accountability buddy. Put photos around of your rewards. So maybe you're holding out a trip to Aruba when you make enough money, but maybe it's just that you were able to put food on the table this week. Maybe you have a dog and your dog was able to get a special treat at the store. So your kids are in college, whatever it is, whatever your why is, write down your why and post it. And then visualize, bask in the glow of what it'll feel like. Here's the problem. We have to increase the positive feelings associated with getting it done. Stop and smell the imaginary roses. What does that mean? What I'm trying to encourage you to do is deep breathing. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. You want to do this proactively and reactively, not just when you're upset or feeling big feelings. You want to do it maybe every hour on the hour. Box breathing is the most helpful. In your nose for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So we call it box breathing because it's in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. So you can do it like a box. This actually releases neurochemicals that calm you. And don't just worry about it when you're feeling negative emotions, but positive emotions can also lead to impulsive decisions as well. So how many of us have ever been really flattered by someone, and then a moment later we find ourselves agreeing to chair the new committee or take on the extra responsibility or come in on our day off because we just got complimented and we were feeling pretty good about ourselves, and they just schmoozed us into agreeing to something we probably didn't want to agree to. So these mindful minutes are very important, and look them up online. They've actually even been shown to improve executive functioning. Okay, a few more things, and then I'll take some questions. Strategize stimulus seeking. When you're taking a break, grabbing a cigarette, petting your dog, if you're at home, getting a snack, changing the laundry, whatever your work environment is, you're stimulus seeking. So set alarms, set times for that, and do what are called tone tapes. So Barkley talks about maybe having a playlist, and every so often in the playlist, you insert a tone or at the end of every song. And when you hear that tone or you hear the song stop, you ask yourself, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now? And you keep a check mark. Schedule your breaks. And before you break, write down what you were doing and what you want to do when you come back. If you need to, put your phone in the other room, turn off your alerts, put it on Do Not Disturb. Talk with friends and family about when you're available and when you're not. These are for my friends who are working from home. And be sure you know why you're taking a break. Remember I said cue, response, reward? Your response, going and getting a cup of coffee, checking your phone, going and changing the laundry if you're working at home, getting up and getting a snack, something tripped that in you. So start to increase your awareness of what is tripping you to take those breaks in the first place. And I always say, just stop feeling guilty about it. Just plan for it. Leverage deadline stress. Take big projects and break them down into little steps. Set intermediate deadlines, because remember, we're good if we have deadlines, and if we're close to the deadline, we get it done. So instead of one project done in 3 weeks, we have little projects done every day up to those 3 weeks. Again, an accountability buddy. Ask yourself why you're putting things off and start out small. Just take the next first step. Use timers. I'm going to work on this for 1 hour. What I get done, I get done. And I'm going to skip that one. It's too complicated for now. Keep processes listed on paper and then just do it. So like I said, repeatable processes. I want to get to setting your work environment because a lot of you had questions about that. All right, plan your workspace. Minimal distractions, keep clutter down. And guys, your organizational system should be simple, like 3 bins. Do it now, do it later, probably never do it, but I'm not quite ready to throw it away yet. There's a book called CEO of the Self, and it's got some really nice examples on how to organize your digital files. Use visual cues, sticky notes, color codes, labels, visual reminders. You want to increase the visual. Make sure your workspace is comfortable and ergonomic. You need a lot of different seating options. Use different task management tools. This Inflow, which is one of our sponsors today, a digital tool. Have various break areas and zones where you can get up and move around. Have natural light. It's actually really helpful. Getting outside, breathing fresh air. Have a structured routine as much as possible. Establish a daily routine with set times. And have flexible seating options. On the floor, on a ball, in a seat, standing desk. Have various fidgets available for yourself. Things that help you stay engaged and active. And the last point I want to talk about is accommodations in the workplace. I'm not an attorney. I don't do disability law, so I want to be really careful here. But just know that in the United States, you can request accommodations. And the ADA provides legal protection against discriminating people with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations is the term. It's essential, though, that you communicate clearly how the accommodations help you overcome your weaknesses. You got to spell it out. You may need documentation from a healthcare professional, and employers are generally required to engage in at least some kind of conversation or interactive process with you. What are some general things that work? Flexible work schedule, modified workspace, organizational tools, extended time for getting tasks done, testing supports if you are in some sort of career that has regular reassessment and retesting. Support from a supervisor, so regular check-ins. Training and education, so workshops and training sessions on time management, organizational skills, like the companies that have hired me to do trainings for their staff. Health insurance coverage. Lighten load. I have worked with several attorneys who have pretty significant ADHD and or learning challenges. And we were able, because of their skill level, they're so specialized and so good, their employer was willing to reduce the number of cases that they were actively expected to hold at any one time. Other employers are not willing to do that or not able to do that. So that's going to be really going to depend. I had a nurse that I worked with for a while, and she was allowed to have fewer cases on her active caseload than other nurses, whereas I worked with other people in the medical field, and that just wasn't an option. So it really depends. All right, to summarize, there are 18 symptoms, but it's the EFs that we're really worried about. There are some self-management strategies. Some I didn't get to because I want to leave time for questions, but feel free to go back and watch this video and read those slides. And you can ask for reasonable and targeted accommodations at work. And if you need to, you can consult with a disability attorney or your HR folks for support. I want to be clear, though, that the accommodations are not based on your diagnosis. They're based on what your issues are, what your symptoms are. So just because another person at your office may have ADHD and gets this, that, or the other thing doesn't mean that you will get this, that, and the other thing. It is highly individualized, and the provision of accommodations really depends on the work environment and the level of functional impact that you're experiencing. Some additional resources. My website is there, Chasing Your Potential. Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, Atomic Habits, Tiny Habits, The Power of Habit, CEO of the Self, all books. ADDitude, of course, has, oh my gosh, so much out there. And then WebMD as well. All right, I've got a little bit of time for questions. So what can I do for you all?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Chase. Before we start the Q&A, I will quickly thank Inflow once more for sponsoring today's webinar. And I want to quickly touch on the results from today's poll question. We asked you all what makes a job great for you as a neurodivergent professional. And I think that the answers kind of just highlight or underscore this point that you just made about how solutions are highly individualized, because what we saw was kind of a split between people who really prefer a flexible working environment. That was the number one answer, but the number 4 or 5 answer was clear and structured tasks.
100%. 100%. I just had a young man in my office this week that I did some testing and assessment with, who's going to college. And it's a perfect example of that. For every student that I evaluate who says, I absolutely need extended time on tests to get everything done, I have another student like this gentleman who said, oh my God, don't give me extended time. Please, I don't want to be there for an hour. Don't make me be there for an hour and a half. So to your point, highly individualized.
Yes, absolutely. And some things also were universal. We saw that, of course, supportive and understanding management was the number 2 answer, and some autonomy and independence in the job role, basically being trusted to do your job well was number 3. So you can view those results, but we'll use them to guide our questions here as we finish off with the Q&A.
And I think that's really helpful for people coming at it from the HR and employer standpoint. Look at what these people are saying that they're asking for, they want from you, and also be open to asking them, what can I do to bring out the best in you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as for questions from our audience here today, a common one was how to handle communication arriving in multiple formats. So one person said, for example, that they are expected to respond to emails, to Slack messages, and to instant messaging through their email platform, and that it is disruptive, to say the least, in a company culture where you're expected to respond promptly. Do you have any advice for setting up limits, guardrails, expectations that can help you not feel like you're just chasing email constantly.
Sure. Yeah. So 100%, I totally agree with you. It wasn't that long ago that I was on vacation, and I remembered when I got back home that an attorney here in town had reached out to me. For the life of me, I could not remember how. So I went to all my social medias, nothing in the comments. I went to all of my messaging apps, nothing there. Obviously, I checked the email. She'd actually telephoned my office and left me a voicemail, like so old school. But it took me like 7 different communication methods to figure out. I remember hearing from this woman. How was it? Was it a text? Was it a text to my cell at work? Was it a text to my personal cell? Was it an email to my person? Right? I mean, we all have like 4 or 5 emails, let alone all of these other communication tools. So recommendation number 1, cut out as many of them as you can. So for example, if you're on Facebook, you don't have to have Facebook Messenger. If you are on, if you have multiple emails, see if you can combine those emails to come in one file. So, or I'm sorry, through one email account. So like, for example, my phone, I have 4 different emails, but they all come to one screen on my phone. And so combine where you can and eliminate where you can. The second thing is, if again, I don't know your role, but if possible, set times of day that you check your messages, however you want to call them. So maybe I check at 9 a.m., I check at noon, I check at 3, and then I check at 5, and that's it. And so you set a timer, and those are the times that you check. And then so in my workspace, I have a postcard, and it says, have you thought about : and I put like the 4 major things that I have juggling in my life so that I know, make sure, like, have you thought about these balls in the air lately? So you could do something like that. Have you checked : Slack, phone messages, Instagram messages, the social media, whatever those methods are, make a checklist. I think the biggest recommendation though, is developing a system and informing people of it. So for example, I've had people text me things and I say, I need you to email me that. I can search my emails. I'll miss this in a text, or I'm sorry, I don't know who this is. Please send me an email. And so just shaping that behavior in other people and really trying to funnel it all into 1 or 2 or 3 primary platforms. So don't be afraid. If you just say in your email, you have an immediate bounce back that says, if you're in-house, I need you to send me a message through this system. So I think taking a stand, we are all drowning in communication. We're all drowning in communication. And I think we need to be transparent with it. I think we need to be honest with it. And I think we need to take the bull by the horns and just cut it down. 3 to 4 methods of communicating with me, and I'll check it 3 to 4 times a day. I apologize if I miss something. If someone says to me, hey, did you get my email? I say, I have no idea. I get over 100 emails in the course of a 7-hour workday. I don't know if I did or not. And then really minimizing the platforms in which they can communicate with you. But it's tricky, 100%, I'm with you. And also just clean out whatever you can. Unsubscribe from as much as you possibly can. That's what I did.
Yeah, that in itself is like a part-time job sometimes.
Well, and then the
For me,
holidays
anyway.
roll around and you make a few purchases and you're on 900 lists again, you know?
Yep. Story of my life. Okay, we didn't touch specifically on this, but so many questions today about rejection-sensitive dysphoria, which quickly is if you haven't heard of it, a component of typically experienced by people with ADHD. That is sort of an extreme and almost physical response to actual or perceived rejection. And in a work environment, a poor review or even a review with just a few things to work on can trigger some intense RSD for folks. And they're really wondering if you have strategies for kind of keeping that in check in a professional environment, that emotional dysregulation component of ADHD.
Sure. So in general, if you can engage in proactive mindfulness activities, your overall emotional regulation is going to be better. And so if you are engaging in these mindful minutes or mindful 5 minutes, I did a 75-day challenge recently. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but basically what you do is you commit to certain activities and you promise that you will do those for 75 straight days. And so one of the things that I did is I increased my mindfulness. And so I found several videos on YouTube that I would do throughout the course of the day. And what happened, it's not day one, guys. It's not day two. It's not, but you find yourself in general managing the littler stuff and the medium stuff better. And if you're handling the little stuff and the medium stuff better, then stacking one of these really yucky feeling negative feedback events on top, your vase isn't already half full of yucky feelings. Your vase is actually pretty empty, and your ability to handle this negative feedback is better because it's not coming stacked on top of all that little stuff. So number one, practice mindfulness regularly. I don't care if you do morning, midday, evening. I don't care if you close your eyes every time you eat something and just do deep breathing while you're chewing and swallowing to be present. But mindfulness itself is a practice that will happen, that in engaging in it allows you to move forward in a less reactive place, first of all. Second of all, don't be afraid of therapy. Don't be afraid to talk to somebody about how you're not comfortable with your level of emotional responding when you're at work, if something happens or something comes up. If you are doing someone's hair and they look at you and they go, this is awful, this is disgusting, it's the worst hair I've ever seen, and you start to cry, that's okay. I mean, you're allowed to take a moment in that heavy responding, separate yourself, shed a few tears, wipe away the tears, do some deep breathing and mindfulness, allow yourself 3 to 5 minutes, set a timer, schedule, I've got 7 minutes to get through this big tearful moment or whatever it is, and then allow yourself to re-engage. So mindfulness, when something big comes upon you, removing yourself privately, setting a timer, doing some deep breathing, allowing yourself to feel the feelings. But also don't be afraid, as I said, of psychotherapy, really working through, is this tripping something bigger? Is this an echo from a parent that was hypercritical? Is this this constant feeling of maybe you're in a relationship right now there's a lot of criticalness and you feel like you're under a microscope. And so when you go to work, you're bringing that with you. Why do I always? How come I'm never? And so therapy can be really helpful as well. And also the fourth thing is recognizing that this is a piece of who you are and that it's not the feelings that are the problem. It's your outward response to them that's the problem. So letting yourself, acknowledging yourself, holding space for yourself that, yeah, this doesn't feel very good right now. And I'm allowed to not feel very good right now, but I've got 5 minutes to not feel very good right now. And then I'm going to have to get back into the workflow of things. And then the last tip on that, I keep a thought parking lot with a lot of my patients. And so we'll have a piece of paper or a little notebook or even just a note on your phone. And if there are things ruminating in your mind and you're having a hard time letting them go, park them on this piece of paper, in this notebook, or in this note in your phone, and tell yourself, I'll come back to that thought later. So many folks with ADHD feel the impulsivity and the need to go through the emotional response because they forget things. Like they say, I interrupt conversations because if I don't say something, I'll forget. Do that with your emotions. Park them in the parking lot and then come back to them later.
Okay, that was excellent. I'm going to squeeze in one last question because it's related but unique and common, and that is about perfectionist tendencies. So a number of people here writing in that due to a lifetime of small mistakes and being called careless and criticism, basically, that they have transformed themselves into perfectionists, and their mental health and their stress is is suffering. So I wonder if you can offer some advice to those people who are struggling with any work-life balance because of that perfectionist tendency.
Sure. So I'll tell you what I've seen work with some of my patients that I've worked with. Number one is exploring where the perfectionism is coming from. Really. Why are you unable to give yourself the grace that you tend to give others? What's that about? And so to me, that's a therapy question. And I think it's something that's really worth exploring. The other thing is I like the idea of the mantra of done is better than perfect. And don't let very good be the enemy of good, or don't let perfect be the enemy of very good, however you want to phrase it. But many times we withhold ourselves from even beginning a task because we're so afraid that it's not going to come out perfect. And I encourage you, like, gosh, I mean, let's just take cleaning your garage. I mean, that's just an example I think everybody can resonate with. Like, I don't even know where to begin, or, a rehab project. I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know. Just begin. Take the first step. But the big thing that I will tell you is if the perfectionism is getting in the way of you initiating activities, if the perfectionism is creating a procrastination, which is what I often hear, what I say is just get the next step done. Just do the next right thing. Take your focus off of the end result and just do the next right thing. Just do the next step. And rather than looking at the top of the mountain that you're trying to climb, just the next step. And it'll feel a little bit less overwhelming. But I think at the end of the day, those of us who've been contending with ADHD for long periods of time really feel like you said, this is something I developed that's adaptive. Well, it's not helping you if your anxiety is through the roof. So then I would not be afraid to talk to someone.
Dr. Chase, thank you so much for joining us today and contributing all of these strategies and insight and also empathy and understanding to Additude's ADHD community. Also, thank you to today's listeners. If you would like to access the resources for this webinar, just visit ADDitudemag.com, search for podcast 514. The slides and recording are posted just a few hours after we wrap up the live webinar. If you're listening in replay mode, you can simply click on the event description. And we hope you know that our full library of Additude webinars is available as a podcast. It's called the ADHD Experts podcast, and it's available on almost all streaming platforms. We hope we will see you again. Next week, we have a free webinar with Dr. Ross Green titled The Explosive Child, Collaborative and Proactive Solutions for Parents. So make sure you don't miss. Yeah, that's going to be a good one.
He's the best. Don't miss it, guys. Don't miss it.
Hey, don't miss it. You can sign up for our free newsletters at ADDitudemag.com/newsletters, and you will get alerted to all of our upcoming webinars, which are always free. And we hope they speak to your needs. If not, email us anytime at customerservice@ADDitudemag.com and tell us what you would like to hear about. Awesome. So thank you again, Dr. Chase. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me.